What is going on, Chris? No one can see us. Now they can. We are live. Oh, we're losing it again. Discord, you're playing with my emotions. I'm telling you, man. I think we have to get rid of Discord. Chris, how's it going?
It's going well, but I'm blaming the producer.
Oh, he's awful. He's terrible.
Yeah.
In the producer's defense, he does not do this for a living.
That's very true. That's very true. Welcome to episode 83, guys. I don't know why it came out like that. That's just how it...
Hey, y'all. Welcome to the podcast.
I have no idea why that came out like that. Hey, buddy. How's it going?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing not bad. Ryan was asking me, he's like, so what have you been playing? I was like, my life has been taken over by Helldivers, and this is a problem. It's the Starship Troopers game I always wanted, and it's taken away all my VR inhibitions. That's not the right word.
Nope, that's not the right word.
Ambitions. And but yeah, I mean, it's definitely got me by the balls. I know that of course, I play with a bunch of VR guys, and we've all been talking about, oh, wouldn't this be great in VR? This would be awesome if they made a VR port. I mean, and it's hard not to like have those thoughts when you're thinking about the fact that it is a Sony title. It's on PC and PS as well as PS5, but it is a Sony, I guess, exclusive, if you want to call it that. But the thing is, we were talking, I was like, I don't know if this would work as a VR title. Like, I mean, I would love to see it in VR. I'd love to experience it in VR. But like, you haven't played it, but it gets pretty crazy. Like, imagine like the most hectic moments in Starship Troopers, and then like, you know, when you're in a
I hate that movie.
Fuck you.
I love that movie.
when you're in you need to play Helldivers. It's like some of the one of the guys I was playing with said that like some of his like most epic gaming moments happen in almost every single mission that he plays of Helldivers. It is pretty awesome. Like that whole just like fighting to stay alive while you're trying to evac, and you got sentries firing off, and you got bugs or robots crawling all over you. It's amazing. But what I was saying was that the core game is in third person view. And to all of a sudden throw that into a first-person view would be crazy.
Why can't it be third person, Chris? Why can't it be third person view?
You're right. It could. But I think that the appeal would be to see it in first, like to have the rifle and just be like, "Come get some. You want to live forever?" You know. But it's like it's pretty hectic in third person. And I was playing with Jason there, the Livinator, shout out, and I was saying to him, like, I think it'd be a little crazy. Maybe too much. It might be too much. Like, you just wouldn't know.
No such thing.
Well, yeah, you know, you'd think so, and I like an intense VR experience. But the fact is that half the time you're just surrounded by fucking bugs, just surrounded, and you kind of like are using that third person view to turn yourself around and see like what's coming and everything. It would be quite the adjustment. I would think that it's one of those games where I think it's an interesting conversation point. Is that would I love to see a hybrid version of this game? Yes. Do I think that they would have to modify it to make it a better VR experience? Yes. Like, I actually feel like the game flow would maybe need to be toned down a little bit. You know?
Yeah. I mean,
just to make it a little bit more digestible. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. If you guys in chat have played the game, let me know what you think. I just feel like it's one of those games where it's like, yes, it would be amazing in VR. But it is an example of a game where it's chaos coming at you. It was originally, the first one was originally like an isometric point of view, top down kind of thing, and twin stick shooter, right? And so they tried to like bring that feeling over into a third person like 3D game, and to all of a sudden to take that chaos and throw you into that, I don't know. I feel like you just wouldn't know what the fuck was happening.
Well, unlike my co-host, I have been playing some VR this week. Yeah. It's been a weird week. I actually had plans to review that new Titanic game that came out for Quest. If you guys even know about it, I was actually told it was going to be like a full release, and it wasn't. And through way too much trial and error and figuring out what was what, the game, it's on App Lab right now. You know, it's coming to PSVR 2 and PCVR at some point down the line. But basically, the premise I really dig actually is just like you play as basically a time traveler who goes back to the Titanic, and has to basically solve this mystery of your a previous time traveler who went missing on the Titanic. So it's this puzzler horror game on the Titanic. Um, and it's promising like PC level visuals on the Quest uh, platform, and I can kind of see where they're going for. It kind of reminded me a lot of Paradise Hotel on the Quest, which I thought was a really good looking Quest game. Better, of course, on PSVR 2 and PC. But for those that are paying attention to what I'm saying, the game is on App Lab, but the game is still in very early access, unfortunately, which is why I didn't review it, because the game is honestly, I'm not going to say broken, but it's got a lot of issues. So I'm really hoping the devs clean it up a fair bit, because from what I played, and I played a fair bit of the game actually, I really enjoyed it. And I think fans of Propagation Paradise Hotel will really dig this game when it like gets fully released. But like I said, if you try it now in App Lab, I think it's $20. It is kind of a mess. They're releasing more content. That doesn't matter. The second thing I want to talk about quickly is Arizona Sunshine 2 got its Quest 3 visual update. And for those of you out there like myself who are like, yeah, let's see what the Quest 3 can do. Apparently it's not that much more than the Quest 2, because the update is absolutely minimal based upon, this example. The Quest 3 update was just so weak. I mean, I remember reading online people saying that it wasn't really didn't do a lot. It's 24 gig update, by the way, which is massive for the Quest.
Sounds like it's just relaunch. It sounds like I wonder if it deletes the old version.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to check and see the original install size. What matters though is I'm looking at this thing side by side. I was putting together a side by side video for you guys, but unfortunately my Quest 3 footage, it's choppy as hell and not really presentable. That being said, the differences are so minor. The dog now has fur. The zombies are supposed to look better. I honestly couldn't tell. And there's a few tiny like asset changes or additions that kind of are thrown in there, but honestly, side by side, the game looks almost identical, which is disappointing, especially considering that they were kind of hyping this thing up a little bit from Vertigo Games, of course, and the fact they really didn't seem to did much for the Quest 3 at all. The one thing I will say is it's sharp. I can't say if it's any sharper than what it was when I played the Quest 2 version. It is definitely it's super clear. I will give it that. But I think that's more just the lenses than it is the actual game itself. But for those of you expecting a big update, or they're going to dive back in, or we're holding off to buy Arizona Sunshine 2 until the Quest 3 update was there, it's disappointing to say the least, I guess.
Yeah, so when Ryan told me what his experiences were, I just kind of was like, see, but that to me that wasn't the game's issues. Uh, I only played it on PSVR 2. I beat the game, and my feelings about it were pretty meh, which is kind of why I was uh I'm a little bit concerned. Well, not concerned, that's not the right word, but I'm definitely going to be overly cautious going into the Metro game that Vertigo's working on. Just because I said that Arizona Sunshine 2 and even After the Fall, they're not good enough, to be honest. To they're not at that level yet as a developer. If that was the quality that they just if that was Metro, if Metro was a reskinned Arizona 2, I'm not happy. Now, I guess the two things I would say is, I said, that wasn't the problem that I had with Arizona Sunshine 2 on the PSVR 2. I just thought the game looked very bland and generic. It wasn't the huge step up out of the first one. I mean, I'm sure if I compared them side by side,
I think it. Yeah,
But
I think it was.
but the feeling of it, like being out in the desert or being in the buildings, it just didn't feel a lot more immersive. It didn't feel like I was in a living world. They still felt very bland and generic. And the only times that I thought that the game was visually impressive, and I was like, yeah, it looks pretty good, was with the dynamic lighting. And my understanding is that is just not on the Quest version, and it doesn't sound like that's been added to the Quest version. And that's what it needed. I mean, when you and I have talked about this, when I think about, they're like, oh, the extra power of the Quest 3. When I think of enhancements coming to Quest 2 titles, for example, my big thing is, please bring in some lighting enhancements, because that's what makes all the Quest games look so bland and boring and generic.
Yeah, but lighting is, that's a huge ask for
I
a
know
lot
it
of
is.
games.
I know
Which,
it is.
ironically, that Titanic game actually did have some dynamic lighting, which I was very impressed by. It just wasn't fully finished. But sorry, keep going.
I was gonna say no, but I was gonna say, like, I agree that it's a big ask, and like, what Space Denizen's saying there is, like, he enjoyed Arizona. I enjoyed playing through Arizona, like, I didn't stop playing it, I played it from the beginning to the end, because I do like a good shooter, and I crank up the difficulty enough that where ammo became a bit of a concern, that kept me engaged, but it was still like, I mean, I hate to say this because it just sounds so negative, but I still say that a game needs to pass the flat test. Like, if you brought this into flat, would it be a good game? Like, it can't, it's like a reverse argument on the how much the graphics matter.
I don't
And
fully agree with that
I know
statement,
you
but
don't, but
I
but
get what
like,
you're saying.
but people say how much do graphics matter, right? And it's like, I say that, yeah, like, graphics can't save a bad game. And I
No.
don't think, and VR can't, well, VR actually can save a mediocre game. I mean, we know this because we play them all the time. I hate to say it, but we do. Uh, but the greatest VR games that we've ever played, with a few exceptions, like something where just is so designed beautifully for everything like VR, like something like, say, Super Hot, uh, do think a lot of the greatest games we've ever played pass the flat test. Like, they'd be good, and they would be good and engaging played flat. Then they're just way better in VR because of, like, immersion and interactivity and this and that. I'm just saying that it's just Arizona Sunshine 2 would be like the most generic, like, indie entrance into a first person shooter if they just brought that out as is. Anyways, I'm getting off topic
I
about the
get what you're
visuals.
saying. I do get what you're saying.
I'm getting off topic with the visuals. I'm just saying that when I heard that the Quest 3 it was getting a Quest 3 enhancement, what I would have loved to have seen was the lighting, as being what they went after. And it remains to be seen, I think, that whether what we're going to see with Quest 3, as far as like graphic capabilities when we start to get into exclusives, because really right now we've seen not much else other than some Quest 3, I guess, patches
Hmm.
to bring up the visuals. Like, an example that jumps out at me, one of my favorite games in VR that I did go back to because I got a Quest 3 patch was, um, oh my gosh, In Death Unchained on the Quest
Oh.
3, and that's pretty impressive actually. I thought it was always a decent looking Quest 2 game, but the
Mhm.
Quest 3 brought in some of, like, without going side by side, I would say it brought in some of the PC textures. They're only actually present when you're kind of things that are up close to you, but they do a decent job of kind of dropping off that detail level. And yeah, I mean, the lighting and the particle effects still aren't quite there, but they're also increased. Like, In Death is a good looking title. And it definitely takes advantage of the Quest 3 visuals. Well, I was gonna say one other thing about Vertigo games, and I can't remember what the heck it was now. Oh, that's what it was. You were talking about it, you felt that it wasn't really the enhancements that like, the, I don't know, the TLC that you would have liked to have seen a Quest 3 version get. And I
Yeah.
would say that another reason I have some concerns about Vertigo doing Metro, at least based on their capabilities thus far, is that they don't seem to be very great at taking, and this is probably just a team and budget size, but taking advantage of each headset's strengths. Like, there were haptics in the PSVR 2. That was awesome to see. But visually, for example, like, I know it's a Unity game, and that's probably what's to blame, but they didn't take advantage of the eye tracking and dynamic foveated rendering on the PSVR 2. And, they don't seem to be leveraging the Quest 3 very much. And that can be seen in their past games too. Like, After the Fall didn't look visually stunning on the PSVR 2. It looks okay. And the PSVR, or the PC version, also had some performance issues. Even on a 3080, it wasn't bad, but it was the best version to play. I just It remains to be seen whether Vertigo Games can take on a title like Metro and really bring it to each headset. So we'll see.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I totally get what you're saying. I mean, I do. I think I have a little more faith in Vertigo because their games aren't bad. But I think,
They're
like,
not
with the
bad. Yeah,
no. But I think because they are being backed apparently by the other developer, and I think just because of what the previous like the bar the flat games set, because of all everything's already pre-established there. All they gotta do is bring that same thing to VR. They're not trying to make something new or make something like, a whole new franchise. Like After the Fall and for the Arizona Session,
Yeah.
those are both their own properties, right? Whereas this one is a pre-established one. Um, Not to say this kind of thing can't fail. I mean, the biggest example of that would be like Medal of Honor VR, I guess, in regards to the flat games versus the original release of the VR game, which was just fraught with terrible pacing and constant.
Yeah,
It
had
felt like a
issues.
very. I mean, it was still a lengthy game, but it didn't feel like a Medal of Honor game. Truly, I don't think it was a good war sim,
It
but
kinda did. It felt like more like the old PlayStation 1 and 2 versions of Medal of Honor, which I liked. It was just that way they broke up things that was unfortunate. It didn't feel it felt like it was trying to be cinematic too much, and it chopped
yeah.
up everything, and yeah, it had issues. I mean, that's a different topic, but there was a lot I think there was obviously a lot of money spent on that.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
I'm
the
gonna
piece. I
guess
mean,
that
that game was a beast.
I'm gonna guess that EA and Respawn consider that an epic failure, but I think that that has to be blamed on them and not on the VR market, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, it's tough. I
And
mean, that one's
when it
tough. I
and
know we're
when
getting
it
a little
and when it comes
sidetracked.
out and it's over 200 gigs,
Yeah,
and when it launched, it was recommending a 2080.
but I
So
mean,
it had some issues.
I don't know how. I mean, like releasing it solely on the PC market like that. I mean, they couldn't have expected like a huge giant boost. As long as the Medal of Honor franchise has been booming for any amount of time, so I think they knew going in. I think that must have been funded by somebody. I mean, it got poured over to the Quest, which was a surprise. I mean, the fact they actually got the gameplay in there is actually shocking.
I'm trying to remember,
Um,
was that originally an Oculus funded title though?
yeah, actually, now that you're saying it, I
I
do
think it
believe
was.
it was, but it was on Steam, so
It was on Steam, but maybe that's because I'm gonna guess that that Medal of Honor game was probably in development for quite a while, and it was probably started in a development when, and this kind of leads to our topic, when I think people were still expecting the PC VR market to blossom. I think there was still a lot of like there was still a lot of enthusiasm about just like getting it to where it needed to be. Like think of like circa Valve Index dropping with Half-Life Alyx, and so are we ejecting somebody?
yeah, I'm done with that NPC me guy.
Yeah,
I
we've
don't
seen.
mind when he talks like like crap or whatever he's talking about. He's just bashing the channel now, and it's like I don't. I mean, why are you here then? So he's done.
Yeah, he's got a reputation. But anyways, I was just gonna say that I don't know what I was gonna say. Oh, that I'm gonna guess Medal of Honor was started in a time period where developers were still thinking that PCVR was gonna explode, or I mean, and I don't mean that to sound so negative. It was just that I think that well, yeah, I mean that's exactly. I think they thought that PCVR was going to continue to gather steam and move and continue to move forward as companies got involved. And I feel like those expectations have been readjusted, obviously, right?
I mean, I think that's just a general statement about VR in general. I think everyone, not FC everyone, but I think there were pockets of people like ourselves that would just kept thinking that VR is going to explode. VR is going to be this next big thing, and it just keeps hitting hurdle after hurdle for a variety of reasons, which is going to be the whole conversation surrounding PC VR this episode. And just the fact that yeah, like as we talk about these games in the past, we talk about we haven't mentioned Alex, but I mean all these other big PC games like stuff like Medal of Honor, like these franchises, even like Star Wars Squadrons, these have come to VR PC gaming, and the fact that we've seen that drop off. I mean, like I said, the last I put down the thumbnail like a dead PC gaming thing. And Lone Echo 2 came out 2021, which I was shocked by. I couldn't believe
wow,
that was like 2.5 years ago now. I was like, oh my god.
yeah,
And so I use that as my reference. But as far as like, there's no big PC releases, or PC exclusive anyways. And you brought up the question, which is what kind of started this whole topic, was like, what's going to fuel the PC VR market? Like what's the drive? And obviously, there's a lot to talk about, but with the explosion of standalone headsets and the lack of reception from the PSVR 2 side of things and the total stagnation of PCVR currently, outside of like I said the modding community, which we'll talk about, like what is the future of PCVR? And this comes off the heels too of the whole fake Valve, what was it called, the Valve that
Oh
website
shoot.
there,
Oh shoot.
the
Yes.
Valve Iris,
Uh,
the Valve. Oh my god,
oh,
I was just on there like half an hour ago.
okay, but I mean, Ryan touched on this is where I brought up the topic idea. I said to him, this this big, let's call it like hoax, basically, because it was fairly elaborate, came out around this new Valve headset, and I was like, I mean, and if that was real,
Prism, the Valve Prism is what that fake thing was.
if that was real, I would have probably pre-ordered it day one because I still want a PC daily driver that's not a Quest headset. Not that I don't think the Quest 3 is great as that headset, but I still would I want a new standalone PC headset. And I think that, and so what got me thinking about this was I was like, all right, like I mean, let's just take a step back though and be like, so if Valve did bring out a PC VR headset, or if any like let's just say Valve, because that's the new big one. Like that is the one that everyone's looking at to bring out the next big PC headset. Like I
Well,
mean,
and it's been rumored, like it's
yeah,
in
that's what I
development. Like
mean,
it's
right?
more than just like
No one
it's coming. It sounds like
like I mean, Microsoft's pretty much killed their mixed reality.
they've shut it down. They
That's
already
what I
they
mean. Or that's what
yeah.
I'm saying, right? So no one's really looking at another HP headset right now because they were a mixed reality headset. Varo. I mean, you're getting into high end stuff, and so I don't a headset from them unless they decide to get into like that $800 to $1,200 price range with their headsets, and really compete in that space. I don't think they're worth they're not going to change the direction of PCVR. And it's just
No.
kind of like, so where is it going to come from, really, I mean, Samsung, you hear noises about Samsung kind of making a headset, but again, I still feel like really the only big PCVR headset anyone's going to care about right now until there's a surprise is going to be an
A
Index.
Quest 3 Lite. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And so it got me thinking, it's kind of like, all right, everyone's like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. It's like, all right, but does it really make sense? I mean, personally, the only way it makes sense for a company to get into the make a PC VR headset is for it to be a hybrid headset. Like if I'm Valve, I'm looking at it going, I'm going to make, and this is what everybody. I mean, you look at all the words are not coming to my brain. The leaks and the oh my god, what's the word I'm looking for?
Dense.
Let's just call it the leaks that that are been come out about possibly what Valve's been working on, right? And and everything points to a hybrid headset because I think it makes sense that, like, again, looking at all the leaks, it's going to be a Steam Deck pretty much jammed into a headset. And that makes sense to me because then it can be a standalone headset and it can leverage some of those that computing power to connect to a PC and play those games. And hopefully, I wouldn't be surprised if Valve's looking at streaming as a big like streaming outside of your own network. Like those are things where I see that as being the only thing that makes sense right now because there's nothing in the PC VR scene to get super excited about. Like
Officially.
see this. Okay, so this goes back. So I'll direct this right at you, Space Denizen, saying UEVR is my life, and I'm not shitting on that on the hype around that, but I'm gonna guess that that's still a drop in a lake as far as any real selling power goes, as far as headsets getting people wanting to get involved. And honestly, all it takes is Unreal to go, fuck you, you can't use us like that, and go after them, and that's the end of it.
Or any big publisher that any of their games that use that engine are just like, what, we don't want people playing Battlefield in VR on Steam, and then EA goes after these guys. It's the same story. It won't take much, and this is fueled by what Rockstar did, right? Rockstar just shut down the VR mods for
Yeah.
GTA, or at least shut that guy down. The mods still exist, obviously, but I mean, there's power behind big corporations, and if they think they're losing money, then they'll step in. Like right now they're not losing money. If anything, they're probably making more money because of game sales, but it's game sales in a very small market. It's not like it's not hurting it, but it's not really, their PC sales I'm sure aren't going through the roof because of VR
Okay, so
specifically.
yeah, and here's my we were going to do a separate episode on this, but I feel like I can't not comment on it. Is that I do have concerns about whether UEVR is actually a negative in the VR scene. I'm not outright saying I think it's a negative. I think it, but I do think it has the potential to have a negative spin on it. I mean, obviously, it's breathed new life into the VR scene, PC VR scene, because there's like essentially premium VR AAA games that we can play in VR, and that's absolutely amazing, especially when they really work. And it's a lot easier to use than say like learning how to mod each game individually and this and that. Uh, and like yes, and Luke Ross was making money because a lot of those his big mods for like say Red Dead Redemption 2 and stuff, I'm pretty sure was behind a paywall on a Patreon. So,
Yeah.
but regardless, my point is that let's if they never charge for UEVR, that doesn't change my concern about it hurting possibly the VR scene. And here's where I see it possibly hurting. Let's just say, for example, I'm EA and I have a game that I'm considering doing a proper VR port to because, VR is the future of gaming. I still feel that way. But let's just say EA's feeling a little ballsy. They feel like they want to invest and really try to, push one of their titles into the VR space. Like a Medal of Honor or something. But let's just say that was an Unreal game. And we've already been playing a semi-ported VR version that's decent, but is not getting hasn't gotten the full VR love. Uh, we may never get that title now because EA is going to go, well, there's no point. Like, it's already been half played. Kind of like a lot of people that would be very interested in it have gotten their thrills out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and and like so, it's just, I mean, it's great in the fact that it's like if you're not going to give it to us, we'll just give it to ourselves. But I also think it shuts down. Then we're just not going to give it to you. Like now you're just not even you're not even on our radar as a community because you're this niche gaming community and you're just playing mods anyways.
I think there's another layer to that too, is that it's also sets a standard that VR is not that's not ready to reach yet. I mean, when you're playing now these AAA games in VR that aren't made for VR, and then you go and play the quote unquote AAA games made for VR, there's a dramatic difference in what we're getting. You talk about Arizona Sunshine as this big release that happened last year, and compare it to something like Helldivers. Like, there's a huge difference in scope and scale. And Arizona Sunshine was people that's a the first game is was praised. I mean, it's an 8-year-old game now, but there was love for that franchise. I mean, we call it a franchise.
You're talking about
And
Arizona, right? You kind of barely got that out.
Arizona Sunshine. Sorry, Arizona Sunshine.
Arizona.
Blah, 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 sorry, Arizona Sunshine. So there was like hype surrounding that game just because of the original. And like you said, I enjoyed Arizona Sunshine 2, AS2. I was just gonna say that. I can't say the full thing, but it's not like I said when you compare it to the like stuff like God or anything else like AAA from these studios, like it pales in comparison. Um, and so when you have this idea that you can play all these flat games on PCVR via mods, and then you go back to even just going back to the Quest, like it does, like I want to play this in VR, but you can only get nothing even close to that unless you're willing to get into the PC market and the modding as well, which I think it paints a weird picture in regards to where VR is currently at.
Well, I mean, you've said it, I've said it, many people have said it. I'm starting to feel it more. I mean, I had a lot and still have some hope that and I have something to talk about that actually, about the PSVR 2's place in all this. And my original, enthusiasm and hope prior to PSVR 2's launch was that it would boost premium VR as a whole period. Like if I'm a developer and I want to, and because not all these developers don't want to make games that are hindered by the Quest 2 and even the Quest 3. Like they don't want to make standalone games as far as like with the visual constraints. It hurts their vision sometimes greatly.
Yeah.
but it's like, but they also think of it as the only place that they can make money with only a few exceptions. And I always hope that the PSVR 2 would be seen as a co-partner with the PC, and that if I'm a developer and I want to make a AAA game, or just a premium VR game, period, I look at, like, say something like Hubris, and it's like, that I'm just saying as a size of, say, game studio ambition wise, and go, okay, I'm making on the PSVR 2 and I'm making it on PC. And that's enough to make money. And I don't think that's turning out, at least it's going to take a while to get there, because the PSVR 2 doesn't seem to be selling like I think we hoped it would. That being said, I don't feel like we've ever seen any updated numbers like that can be counted
Well,
on.
I mean, like, who was it? The Verge or someone was actually just
I don't
calling
trust them
Sony
ones,
out
but
because they just, well, they mean it's not. It's, I mean, it'll be obviously the year anniversary of PSVR 2 next week. But outside of the initial launch window of like 600 headsets, they haven't said anything. And that now everyone's kind of starting to call Sony on that. Like, why haven't they said anything? Like, it's pretty clear why you're not saying anything, but of course they haven't
based
said
around
anything, so no one
Christmas
actually
sales,
knows.
I'm gonna say it's not, probably not super positive. I mean, I don't want to go down this train again, but Sony's just hasn't been pushing it like I thought we hoped they would, and we just don't know what their game plan is, and so it is what it is. It's just a slower roll than I think that we hoped it would be. And my point is that uh, if I'm a developer looking at making a game right now, it's not super exciting to look at just doing a PC PSVR 2 game. I think they all feel like they need to bring the Quest in, because it's like it's just such a different, it's such a massive audience that you're opening up to. And this is what we're talking about. Like, the VR game is changing a little bit in that I really think I don't think VR is going anywhere. I don't think VR is dead. I think VR is
No,
fucking amazing. But I do think I think that we're really, really, really being restricted by wherever, at this point, the Quest headsets are. Like, I feel like, we keep talking about games that were like circa 2017 to 2021 or 2020, that kind of era of some premium titles that in many cases we haven't even touched. Like Stormland made the news recently because it's been taken off the
womp
store.
womp.
But a game like Stormland, there's very few VR games that are coming out these days that are of that quality.
That was crazy. We, you played that for like a week.
Very,
That
very
was,
few.
and that was a solid PC game that now is just gone. I mean, they shut down
And
the
I mean,
servers and then now it's just gone. Like, it's crazy.
hopefully Insomniac's gotten the rights back, and maybe we see some PSVR 2 love for that game. I really hope so. I know I don't think so, but you know what? I still wouldn't be shocked if Stormland resurfaced on a PSVR 2. I really wouldn't. We don't know what the right issues are around that, because I do think that the PSVR 2 is very capable of doing it. I could see Insomniac possibly uh porting, sending the port out to a third party, bringing another company in to do the PSVR 2 version. Like, I don't know if Insomniac necessarily has to get involved in it, right? And I think that if the rights are there for them to have, if they've reverted back, I think Sony would be stupid not to take advantage of that as a game. My point being is that I was thinking about it, and if we look at the current uh, horsepower trajectory of where we've seen the Quest 1, 2, 3, I would say that we're at least Quest 5 until we get to the point where we could run some of those games like Lone Echo and Stormland and Half-Life Alyx, titles from that era at that level visually.
No, I
I
mean, obviously it can happen now.
unless something drastic changes in mobile chip technology, I see that kind of being where we're looking at in a timeline wise. Uh, I mean, the Quest 3 still, it's not a powerhouse, and so I mean, those games would have to be, you know, completely optimized, and even then, it's just not there. It's not there. Stormland 2 is a wide open game. That game's not coming to Quest anytime soon.
No, oh my god, no. There's no way that's gonna happen. I'm sorry, I'm actually scrolling through the best PCVR games list published late last year, so a relatively recent list, and it's sad how like nothing on this list is new. The newest thing on here is Kayak Mirage VR and Hubris. Otherwise,
Like
it's all games from
I
well,
know.
Vertigo 2, I guess as well. But 3 games out of 25 that were made in the last 2 years, and before that, like it's grim unless like I said, outside of the Unreal thing. And the Unreal thing, it's like you said, it's kind of a double edged coin. 'Cause at the same time, it does show what VR is capable of. It does show like like if no one else is going to make these games that we've been clamoring for, even remakes of older games. We always Bioshock. Where the heck is Bioshock VR? That kind of thing. It's like if no one else is going to do it, then sure, this is where the modding community always steps up in regards to PC gaming. Um,
But you cannot carry an industry like
no,
VR gaming. You cannot carry PC gaming on mods. You just even a plug and play mod. Now, what I guess what I hope comes of this is I hope that if I'm Unreal, I'm looking at that going, they literally created a plugin that allows these Unreal Engine games to be played in VR very well and like arguably better than some native VR games, right? And and I really hope that they either adopt their own tool set around that or straight up buy UEVR and and put and offer it. Like it needs to be offered as a toolkit option to developers because like it is, look how easy it is. These games get injected into it and they come out as a VR game.
yeah,
Like Jesus. Like now because so now like going back a few years ago and when I was in this is I was kind of involved in some of the behind the scenes stuff with 3D Rudder. And I remember how much of a hassle, for example, they were having with just getting developers to allow them to add functionality of the rudder in. And it's like, and it was just kind of like they would say to developers, we can do it for you, like really quickly and very easily. We just let us do it. And they were like, no, it'll, we want $200,000. It's
yeah.
like, fuck you. Like, it's literally like boop, 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 beep, boop. And it's like, and it runs. And it's kind of, and I feel like any developer, in the PC scene, especially that wants to turn, if it's an Unreal Engine game and they turn around and say they can't justify the cost of a VR port, fuck you. Like, and that's kind of what I feel like UEVR. It's like a big middle finger to those developers. And and as much as I say here, like I don't know how much of a positive impact it has on the VR scene, I feel like I mean like right now, like if I'm a developer looking at making a VR game or making one of my big AAA games and doing a VR version and it's an Unreal game, I might not do it. I don't because I probably don't see the value in it, and I'm not gonna I don't wanna muddy the waters, with competing with some mod version of my game too. Like, people like, "What VR version are you playing?" Like, it just gets confusing, and so but what I'm hoping is on the long game, UEVR has an impact on the industry as a whole, that maybe the future of premium VR is in plug and play mods for various engines. I don't know, is that the future? Of just is if be until developers like, things catch up financially for them, is that just the future?
I mean that's that's what I was going to touch on as well. But yeah, we're also in a the whatever's happening with the economy and the gaming economy
Yeah,
right now. It's not good, and there's no way in the world VR is going to come out of this unscathed. Like it's if these big studios are having troubles making money back on their big games. Ubisoft we talked about last week in regards to the fact they've just they haven't shut down their VR um whatever
servers?
development. No, no,
Oh, oh,
it's not. They just said they're not investing any more like money into it than like they're basically scaling it back. But I mean,
talking about
like,
Ubisoft?
yeah,
I thought
yeah,
you
they
said EA.
basically. No, I said Ubisoft.
Oh,
But they didn't say they were like shutting down VR. They just said like, look, for the foreseeable future here, we got to consult. We got to figure things out. The fact they're calling what's that Skull and Bones, whatever that one that
yeah.
Assassin's Creed spin off there, they're calling it a quadruple A game. I mean, personally, I think
That's what they're saying?
that's that Eve Gil. I can't remember his last name. Guillemot
Oh, yeah,
Guillemont
yeah, yeah, it's like a French last name. Yeah, you can't just say it's a quadruple, A
quadruple A
game. Yeah,
quadruple
you
A
might have spent that much money on it because that game's been in development forever, but
forever.
the general consensus is because I love Black Flag, which is where that came from, originally, right? And Black Flag was amazing, and it was like, this was just a mode in Black Flag,
Hmm.
and now it's just, oh my god, you know what? I hate to say this. Ubisoft cannot fucking help themselves when it comes to this woke shit. I tell you, like they literally cannot help themselves. I was watching a streamer and he was critiquing it and he pointed out he's like he actually brought up lists of the greatest pirates of all time. And it was male pirates and female pirates. Now, of course, we're looking at a certain time and point. It was actually considered like I think it was like almost like a curse if you had a woman on the deck of your on your pirate ship. I mean, people were stupid back then, right? Obviously, but being authentic to that time period, this guy's laughing, and his entire ship there's like a couple guys running around on the deck, and all women. Like his entire deck crew was women, and as they're in battle, it's all you can hear is like it's just like on the bow, ah! And it was like it seriously was like he had a fucking women's spin class on the deck of
Inclusion,
his.
you got to include them. Yeah, I do. I
I
hear you
but
coming
it,
from,
no,
but
but they took it past inclusion,
oh, I get it.
and it's now 75% like a female deck crew. And it's kind of like Ubisoft, like, what are you doing? Like if you're a history buff, that's gonna piss you off. If you're just like want actual equality in games, it's gonna piss you off. Like it's just it and it takes over the sound in the game too. It's like I don't know. I'm
Well,
getting
again,
off track, but
rewriting history to a modern narrative doesn't make any sense. But everyone's doing it. That's what you're complaining about, or not complaining, but that's
yeah,
what you're
that's what
talking
I'm saying.
about.
That's what I'm saying. It's kind of that. Of course you are. It's like I don't have a problem with inclusivity at all, and I consider myself, like a proponent of equality. But like you're doing it to a point where you're not helping anyone. It's just now just stupid, and it's going to get rejected and pushed back upon. And we're not even talking about the quality of the game yet. I'm just saying that just jumped out at me as it's like, of course, Ubi, because that was like you made a comment in your review of Assassin's Creed where it was like, what was it, male,
Feminine
feminine
or
or
masculine
masculine?
voices.
It's like, and I think you said so. Now it's like, what? Now we can't just have male or female. And I mean, you know what? And to me, that would have been a simple way to keep things, put the choice in players' hands, and keyword being choice, let you pick your crew. Anyways, I am totally getting off on a tangent here, but my point is that game's from what I've understood is not great. It's a looter shooter to the max. It's just buy a new ship, upgrade your ship, buy a new ship, upgrade your ship. You can't board ships. You can't. I mean, they're not. It's not a good game.
No, and it comes back to the whole idea of the current like gaming economy. We talk about how many Xbox exclusives have there been? How many PS5 exclusives have there been? Not even VR, just PS5 exclusives. And this console cycle is already half over. Um,
Did you hear about that?
yeah, well, I mean, my PlayStation said, yeah, it's in its like whatever last few years. Everyone's calling for 2027 or 8 for the next console, which makes sense.
Uh,
It's 7 years. I mean, that's the thing is,
yeah,
that's how fast time has gone. It's
can't
insane.
do, but I don't. And I said this before. I think back on the channel is like I don't think a 7 year console cycle is just isn't realistic anymore. I mean, if you want consoles to stay relevant, and it's not like they haven't in the past. I mean, like you and I talked about this before, but if you go back into the days of like, for example, I don't know, I think of like Super Nintendo. You know, the PC version of games usually didn't even come. There was no parity. It didn't even you didn't even get that version. If it was a PC game, chances of it being on console were almost never going to happen. Even Doom, for example, like it took years and years and years and years and years to get a semi playable version
I
of Doom.
love Doom on SNES. How dare you? How
Exactly.
dare you?
You know what? But Doom was running for years before that. Before it was, all I'm saying is that now we're in a world where PC and console pretty much are at the same level, or at least they're playing in the same
Yeah.
league,
Yep.
and PC is held back often by where consoles at, and I really just don't think. I mean, obviously there's Nintendo, and Nintendo just does what Nintendo wants to do, but for the most part, I feel like you know, console generations, I'd say 5 years max.
No,
Um,
you can say all you want, but it doesn't change that like
well, okay,
seven's
but
always the magic number.
okay, but
It's
even if it being 7 on the PS4, there was a mid console with the Pro.
Yeah,
So it's like,
which was also discontinued, and you can't buy pros. I mean, they got rid of they stopped manufacturing those things.
did they really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
you can't get a pro in store.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's weird.
they yeah, well,
Can you
because the
can you?
why
But you
would
can
we,
still buy a you can still buy a standard PS4.
well, yeah, because it's still supported. That's also part of the reason why this generation's been weird because they're still supporting last gen
I know that, but you
4
think,
years deep. Like
but
like the,
Pro was like, like that was a necessary leap in some cases. Like there were games that were able to get 60 frames and stuff.
yeah,
So that seems that is, if that is the actual case, that is
I'm
they
positive.
I they should have just canned the PS4 and made the Pro the standard version. Maybe
Well,
that's what it is.
well, you can't do that then because now you are possibly cutting. You can't do that. Was the whole problem with that thing is they released a pro, but it was still held back by the PS4. Like
No,
that's
they couldn't make Pro only games. That was that was the thing. But if the only PS4 version you could get was a Pro, uh that would still be fine because they never allowed exclusivity on it. You wouldn't be cutting anything out. You would just be making that the most powerful version of the console was the last version standing.
well, the PS5 Pro's coming soon, anyways, right?
I agree.
I don't know
Possibly.
about that actually. I mean, it
I
seems
don't
like
know.
we should
Yeah,
have heard about it
yeah,
more
yeah.
than we
Well,
have
that's what
by
I'm saying.
now.
When you start hearing stuff like conversations like this, it makes me wonder if they look at that as being just not a successful. Like I thought that it was viewed in the industry that the Pro and the mic was it the one Xbox One Xbox One S
Right.
was their mid gen, and I thought those were considered successful mid gen upgrades, but I don't know, maybe not. I'd have to see some stats on that. But what I do have stats on that relates directly to our conversation, I wouldn't call these stats. I actually take them with a grain of salt. But there was an article that came out a couple weeks ago, I believe, or a week ago, saying that there is a decrease in there has been a significant decrease in PCVR usage. This is based off Steam stats. But what you do have to take into consideration, and this might directly relate to what we're talking about, is it only measures VR games. Like they have to be actual VR games. So, like I'm saying, if let's say a huge chunk of your active PC VR gamers, like your live and die PC VR gamers, are playing UEVR games because they probably are because it's opened up this entire library of opportunities of AAA experiences. Yeah, of course those numbers are going to drop, and they might drop significantly, especially if you're a big PC VR guy, because like there hasn't been anything new coming out for you in actual VR games. So what are you playing that's new? You're playing all those games.
Arizona Sunshine too. They're still playing
Yeah, okay. But
it.
I'm gonna guess that a lot of those people are jumping into, say, like Aliens Fireteam or Returnal or something. Like, why the hell wouldn't you?
Oh, for
Uh,
sure. Like I said, it's tempting. I mean, like I said, I've always not to say anti mod. It's not my jam. I just prefer to like turn a game on and have it work.
well, and so this is where this article goes with this. Is this article's the question that they're posing, and they back it up with some loosely gathered stats. Is that they think that the drop in PCVR gaming, and they refer to it as, they don't refer to it as premium gaming. They refer to it as something else, but like essentially premium gaming. They wonder if they are losing the audience of PSVR 2 because of some of the exclusives, like because there's more excitement in the premium VR scene for real VR games on the PSVR 2 than there are in PC. I really do believe that. I mean,
Well,
with
and
game
that's true. I
like
mean, like
with Bill,
Synapse.
yeah, with Synapse and Village and of course Resident Evil 4, and then and there's still Call of the Mountain, and then GT7 being, I think, the big one. Those games just don't exist on PC. They're not going to exist on PC, at least unless you're playing a modded version, like with the
Mhm.
Resident Evil games. They could be drawing an audience. I don't necessarily agree with that statement that this site was making, that they think that PCR VR players are being pulled over uh, to the PlayStation. But then you know what? As I'm saying that, maybe I do agree with that because I typically will play my PSVR 2 over a PC game any day if I have a chance because it's plug and play. I just don't have to worry. And my PC's doing other things too, like running a 3D print or whatever, and I just keep the world separate. It just feels more fun. I still every time I get on the PC, I'm sitting there with a little low level anxiety of whether something's gonna go wrong.
Yeah, I get that, but I mean, I think that statement. I don't think PC is going over to PS. I think that is so.
I would say they're probably losing some players.
I mean, sure, of course, I'm sure. Some, of course, I mean, I was going to say like it wasn't. Of course, there's some who have gone over, but I think majority wise, I mean, it's PC versus console. It's still kind of the same argument, and even when it comes to VR, especially when you have the whole modding side of thing and
I
blah
agree.
blah blah blah.
I agree.
And PSVR two, like the releases are few and far between as far as a console exclusives. There's not a lot to talk about on PSVR two, which is
But
not a
there's
conversation to have now.
but there is more to talk about than there is
A little bit, but at the
on
same
PC.
token, but I mean,
But
you know,
a little bit is a lot. I mean, like GT7, 2 Resident Evil games, Call the Mountain, although I hate to throw that in there because I don't believe that, but a lot of people do.
VR game of the year. Come on, man.
Exactly. But I'm just saying, like, those games right there, that packs a wallop if those are genres you're interested in. And that is what I have said in counter to the whole like pissy divisive argument that people get into whether PSVR 2 and Sony is delivering have if they've brought enough games and enough good games, and whether we should stop our whining and this and that is I do think one of the things to consider is that you have a driving game and 2 horror games as your primary offerings, and they are more niche genres than you know whether say like if they had brought Horizon Zero Dawn like the full game to VR, for example, that would be more of a headset seller
Hmm. For
than
sure.
saying GT7 the whole game in VR. That doesn't GT7 sways me more, but I'm part of the racing sim niche that I'm talking about.
No,
So
I mean, but counter to this, I mean, the games, but there's a couple racing games that are coming out here for PC only, PC VR only.
yeah, I mean the big one for me is WRC, which is for people who don't know, the license went back to EA, so Codemasters, which did Dirt Rally 1 and 2. And so they're making the next WRC game. And from what I can gather, because I've been waiting to play the WRC game in VR instead of flat, is I mean they brought everything that they Codemasters just brought everything that they've learned from the Dirt series, like that sense of sim realism, which is benchmark for rally games. They brought that to the WRC series. Awesome, but it's going PCVR only. And like there's just like they didn't even leave the door open really for a PSVR 2 version. And we've talked about this before on the channel. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it actually would be a lot of work to optimize that game to come out for PSVR 2. Um, just because, like, yes, GT7, yes, and I'm sure a ton of money went into that, and it's also a PS5 exclusive. So Polyphony knows that console inside and out, and they've got full
Well, it's
funding,
PS4.
and they've got and they've got Sony. Yeah, well, they had to make it run on a PS4 as well. So everything's going for it in the development phase of making that game run amazingly in VR. And like, yeah, and also GT Sport, like a lot of R&D went into getting that to be a full VR game, and they pulled the plug on it when they just couldn't get it where they wanted it, running full grids and online and this and that. So, I mean, that game just has so much funding and time into making like a god tier VR mode that I don't see Codemasters or EA wanting to spend that money and into bringing the WRC game over. But
I'm
then this,
surprised they're doing VR at all. In all honesty, I mean,
well,
it's
you know what? But yeah, but Dirt Rally
it
in
doesn't
VR.
make any sense to me, man.
Well, but Dirt Rally in VR
I
is
know,
like it
I know.
I know, but it is especially it makes sense for that community. It does. Like one of the places where PCVR is still like dominant, I would say. Well, maybe dominant's not the right word, but I would say very much a part of the culture of that game itself is your sim games. Whether that be flying or driving games, like a lot of sim racers use VR headsets. A lot. Like screw triple screens now when you can be in the car. And the fidelity is starting to get to a point now where you're not losing a lot, you're gaining a lot by
Mm.
going to a VR headset instead of triples. and just having the depth for breaking points. And I mean, you just cannot compare VR racing to, and if you've got a racing rig and stuff and then a VR headset, oh my God. And that's the world that they're playing in when they're releasing WRC. Like, at least on the PC side, and that's where that again comes back to it's worth it on the PC for them. They're looking at the console market going, well, if we've sold X number of units because it's available for PS5 flat right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they just probably look at it as going, yeah, like the conversion rate to VR is just not there for them. But on PC, that's different.
So getting a little back to the conversation in
This
regards
is the
to,
conversation.
well, just a little more on topic. In regard to, like, Valve's next, assuming Valve releases this next headset, one of the questions that has come up is like with Sony, it always comes back to Sony. It's like, why isn't Sony doing more to support the headset? Why aren't they publishing more games, or like funding more games to come? Like, why aren't we seeing their big licenses come to the headset? And that's PlayStation, that's Sony. When it comes to PC, I mean, like, outside of, so we've talked about Samsungs and everything else you mentioned. I mean, Pimax is still floating around in the background. They're releasing some 12K headset or something soon. I can't remember
Yeah,
what
I know.
the
There's
number
your
was.
there's your ridiculously high-end VR scene that is
But
mostly funded, it's more just like what can they do?
right, but it comes back to the question of, like, so, like what's, like, so this next Valve headset comes out, and let's just say it just does everything that we want it to do. Um, it still leaves a pretty gaping hole in the fact that the games aren't coming to PC regardless. There's rumors, and very, very loose rumors, of Half-Life Alyx 2 floating around out there, just because someone mined some game code from some other Valve published game, and they found some code in there that hints at Half-Life Alyx 2, possibly. It's
Yeah.
very, very, I mean, it's happened before with previous Valve games, which is the only
Yeah,
reason why it kind of makes
great
news.
though.
But it's reaching, for now it's reaching anyways. But that being said, like, the PC is a weird market for VR because it's unlike Meta, who has their own studios and everything else, and obviously they're the biggest selling VR platform right now too, so they kind of just attract the attention. But when it comes to PC, it's still the Wild West when it comes to game development. And so when they drop this new headset, it's like, what's the reason to buy this thing other than, like, it's just the latest and greatest headset,
Okay,
as
well, I
opposed
feel
to,
there's two conversations here. I think there's the what do we think would need to happen for a new Valve headset, or a new PC headset from anyone to be successful? Like, what would make sense for a developer to release a PC headset? And then there's
it
what
has to blow the Quest 3 currently out of the water as far as specs go.
if it, you mean if it wants to get into the standalone business? Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, if it wants to, even, like, if you, a reason to buy this
Oh,
thing,
okay.
like, you're competing against the Quest 3, which can
Well,
already do everything on its own, plus be a PC
okay.
tethered headset.
So that brings me to my second part of that, which was what does Valve think it needs to do? Because I think it's worth considering how Valve looks at things, and I'm going to take what they'd said about gaming and apply that to a headset. So they talked about with the Half-Life series that when they decided to do a Half-Life 3, like they talk about how they don't do games very much, like they're not in the game industry as much anymore at all, and they don't need to be. They make all their money from Steam. But they're saying that when they look at making another Half-Life game, or I think making another game, period, they very much take a look at it like, we don't need to do this. It has to make sense. We want to do it. And they had said that when they decided to do another Half-Life game, this is before Alex, when they were like looking at, do we do another Half-Life game? They said it had to make sense for them. Like, it had to make sense why they would do another Half-Life game. It had to be a genre defining game. They didn't just want to do another Half-Life game, just another first person shooter, They wanted to like change the industry. It had to be something that was, like I said, a benchmark title. And to them, that was Half-Life Alyx. Like, they looked at it going like, no one's done VR right. No one's really made like a AAA VR game.
And they
They
got
haven't
so close.
they got very close. They got damn close, right? And it, super polished, played really well, felt AAA. I mean, it's still a benchmark title, right?
Oh
And that's
yeah, for
what they
sure.
wanted to do. And they set out to do that.
And it was
And
so optimized that even low end PCs could run that thing and it still look
I mean,
beautifully. Like,
it's incredible. And but they have stated since then that for a Half-Life Alyx 2, for a follow-up, it still has to make sense.
yeah,
Like, for them, it has to be worth doing. It has to be, again, genre defining. Now, I'm gonna guess that from those statements that Valve did release, that they look at the same way as their headset. Because when you look at the end index coming out, it really was "Here's the PCVR headset." You know? Like, it had inside out yeah, it had inside out or outside in tracking. It had the towers, which, arguably are still, like, the best tracking solutions, even though they're a little cumbersome. But the fact is that it had the best tracking. Their controllers were awesome. That with the way they had, like, the grip sensitivity and the knuckle grips and stuff. I mean, they for me changed the way I look at VR controllers. They had the finger tracking built into them. The headset, wide field of view. For its time, it had a great resolution. I mean, it was just a really, really nice, high quality headset. And for a lot of people, it's still their daily driver. I feel like it's getting a little long in the tooth in certain specs, especially
oh for sure.
resolution. But my point is that I don't see Valve making a successor unless they feel like it's another, like, boom moment. Like, here is the PC headset. And I don't see that a world where that happens and it's not standalone as well.
But so then what does that mean though as far as standalone goes? So it's a whole other standalone marketplace, like just to compete with, Meta and Pico, I guess, but Meta, basically,
Uh,
like they're gonna have their own standalone market. Like,
I don't know if I can see that. And I mean, and
that's what I'm saying.
I don't know if I can see that, but it's also like, do they have to? Like, it's like, I guess it's like, does Valve see the future of VR and standalone? That's the question. That's
Index
really
is
what
still selling for $1,300 Canadian.
I know, it's crazy. But isn't that that is the question though. Does Valve see the future of VR in standalone, or do they still think they see it being requiring the horsepower of a PC?
And I
And
said it last time. I think the future. I said last episode towards the end, but I think the future is now in standalone.
I
I've
would agree.
lost faith in PlayStation. I'm not saying I can't get it. I'm not done with my PlayStation VR headset by any stretch. I've just I'm part of I'm of the side of just losing faith. I'm not I know there's lots of great games for the headset, lots of everything else, but I see just how much attention standalone gets, especially with the Vision Pro coming out there. I think whether it's valid or not, these standalone headsets are setting the bar for what people expect out of VR. And being tethered isn't one of those things.
Well, but I mean, and I agree with you. I mean, anyone who says otherwise is arguing against a lot of stats. You know what I mean? Like sales stats, usage stats, everything standalone is dominant, dominant, dominant. But I still wonder if are we a couple of, like, mega games away from shifting the tide? Like,
Oh, for sure.
you
I
you
totally
could
back that up.
you could argue that Half-Life Alyx is the closest to a GoldenEye moment that VR has gotten to, and I mean VR across the board, standalone console, PC. Half-Life Alyx is still probably the closest that they got to a GoldenEye moment where, and I mean that GoldenEye moment where it was like, holy shit! Like, I bought an N64 for GoldenEye. I didn't care about anything else on it. I was like, I have to have it. I have to have it. There's nothing. I need to play that. I need to own that game. I need to play that game. I need that in my life, and I'll pay whatever it needs to be, you know.
Yeah.
And Half-Life Alyx was the closest we've gotten to that moment. You and I joke about it. Like, what if Grand Theft Auto 6 dropped a VR version? Now,
That would change everything.
would it? I mean, it probably would, and it was awesome. It'd have to be awesome, though.
And
It
it's
has
terrible. I've mentioned
it
it's
would
the
have
worst thing ever.
it would have to be absolutely amazing, as a VR version. But even that, could you qualify that as a GoldenEye moment? Because it would still be able to be played flat. It would almost need I mean, Half-Life Alyx 2 or Half-Life Alyx was such a flex because it was literally them making a sequel to the most anticipated or the most one of the most loved franchises of all time and going, "And only in VR,
Oh, for
motherfucker."
sure. I mean, like, how fast was it? We're getting news of like people modding it to be able to be played flat. Like, it didn't take very long because everyone like it's a huge franchise. It's a lauded franchise, and yeah, only releasing VR like that, like that was a statement. It just unfortunately the statement didn't end up going anywhere really, but it was still a statement at the time, nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think you could make an interesting case study, and maybe this is an episode at some point, but I don't know if Half-Life Alyx would pass the flat test. It is a game that was very, very, very curated for VR and
Play it.
and
I heard like the mod pretty
playing it
much had
very
it down like to the
no, but I
like.
mean, I've beaten Half-Life Alyx, and I'm just saying that,
Well,
like,
then go back and play it flat and see how
you
you
know,
think.
because, I mean, it was a slow-moving game. Half-Life Alyx was a very slow-moving game,
Oh yeah.
very slow. Like, we've talked about that. But I just feel like if all of a sudden you had, like, fast movement and you were just pew, 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 like a Twitch shooting your way through that, you would rip through that.
Then you
Like
go
it
and
was
grab
like
that.
it was
Then you go and
nothing.
grab that crowbar and press X to swing, and it does nothing.
Yeah, it's just
Kind
yeah. But that, I
of
mean that
very Alex.
but yeah, Alex was just it was so made as a VR game. You almost can't separate
Yeah.
the two, I
No,
think.
I agree. I mean, I
Yeah,
totally agree with that.
yeah. But I mean, so it goes back to this basic question of what what would entice a hardware developer to make a VR headset? I mean, like I said, to me, Valve's the only one that makes sense right now. It just unless
Yeah, I agree with that.
like I Samsung, I mean,
Yeah, unless they make it the ability to make
Sam,
anything tethered. Like I mean, like
yeah,
so.
tethered, yeah,
Yeah.
but tethered. That's
No,
the thing.
so but it's the idea everyone's making standalone that can work with Steam and thus PCVR.
Of
But
course, but
that's
you've got okay, so you've got like 20 million Quest headsets sold. All right, that it still doesn't like it doesn't mean that they're buying $2,000 PCs. So the barrier to entry on PC is always cost. It's
yep.
always cost. I mean, it's I think it's much less any technology boundary, technology walls, as far as like because people are just like as kids grow up, they're just being more and more tech savvy. So that's becoming less of an issue. It's more just of a money issue. And that's probably more of an issue now than it was before. Like with the economy, it's like, yeah, who, 2 grand, easy. I mean, yeah, $1,000 will get you into the PCVR scene, but
Yeah, but I mean, it's not. I mean, that's not great. You're also,
it's
at
not
that point
great
in time, you're also not be able to experience a lot of things. Even the Unreal thing.
because you
Those
need to
games
have
are
yeah.
you'd have a beast to run those things flat, let alone in
They're not
VR. So
optimized, yeah, they're not
right?
optimized. I mean, there's probably some optimization going on in the engine, but not much. It's very much a game that you just need to muscle your way through. And I've heard a lot of people say, like, you just have to you have to drop your settings down because they're flat game settings, right? Like, that are running through VR. You can't just max them out, even with a 4090. So I
Mhm.
don't know. This goes back to my like if I'm Valve and I'm bringing out a headset, it absolutely has to have wireless capability. I mean, absolutely has to have wireless capability if you're coming out now.
So does it
And
have like a dedicated wireless peripheral? Like how's like, or is it going to use like
well,
Wi-Fi 6 or like this
yes,
is
yeah. Well, I think and that might be the Valve solution that we have to see. Maybe they decide to come up with some kind of a module to plug into the computer to get rid of that. That
more
I mean,
dongles? I love dongles.
I mean,
No, it's
what?
a solution. I'm not making fun so much as I'm
No,
just
I mean,
I just like saying dongle,
but
dongle.
but you know what I'm saying, though. I do believe that wireless is a no-brainer. Has to
You'd
be wireless.
think.
Has to be wireless, and that's
Mhm.
where all the patents. That was the word I was going for. Makes sense around the fact that it's gonna be it's gonna be a VR headset with something like what you call it like I got patent and now I can't think of what the handheld's called. What the hell was the handheld called? Steam Deck.
Team Deck,
With
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
a Steam Deck slapped on the back of this thing, right? That makes a lot of sense to me because then you get the PC functionality, right? Um, Matty Fat Bat Cat there. So
I
I
agree.
I yeah, I do, but, like, say, looking at the PSVR 2 as an example, I have no problem staying wired. I like being wired. I don't like having to worry about the, headset battery. Although, that being said, if you got, like, a Bobo 3 and you got a couple batteries, you're never dying. You're
No,
just
but but that's still not an ideal solution. I
it's
mean,
not
like I said,
ideal.
when you can't play through a full game, 2.5 hours battery life is not a long time if you're actually engaged and can
I
handle
agree.
VR.
But
Like it's
right
not.
now but right now with my Quest 3 and the Bobo strap on there with the interchangeable batteries, if I'm talking about, like, let's say I wanna go play, like, an entire night of walkabout mini golf with some friends, which is a thing that happens. I'm better off playing it on the Quest, just because right now what I run into is controllers dying on the PSVR 2, and
Yeah,
Sony
same
doesn't sell
same.
second set of controllers, and so it's not like, the controllers last as long as the Quest 3 headset does, like,
This is
they
true.
they die fast, especially if they're using up
The
if they're
haptics.
using the haptics a lot, yeah, and
Yeah,
so
I mean, I've seen people who have like those battery banks strapped to their
I've
PlayStation controllers,
seen that.
and I mean, it's a fine idea. I just worry about actually wrecking the ports on those things. I mean, I have seen a few ports that have been messed up by just weight imbalances, or even janky ass Amazon that are like frying their ports. But that's blah, 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 blah. But you're not. I mean, the battery issue is I guess really
It's a bigger
it's
it's
a huge
arguably a
issue.
bigger issue because at least because, I mean, a wired headset doesn't get in the way that much. It's kinda designed to sit back behind you, and we kinda all know how to navigate that. But I've tried plugging in controllers. It doesn't work when you're having to sit there and you can't do any I've tried playing Resident Evil wired. I'm trying to keep it controlled, and someone come at me, I took the knife, I'm like, because I was so cognizant of not being able to reach out.
Just got a couple 6 meter cables. Just have your not only is your headset now tethered, but so are your VR controllers. You're doing it wrong, Chris. You're doing it
And
wrong.
now I've got 3 tethers coming from my ceiling wire management for the controllers as well. I mean, it's that just drives me nuts that Sony doesn't have controllers for sale. What the fuck?
Now
Like,
it's crazy a year
I
deep,
don't I
especially with
don't
the
understand.
especially like since of the amount. Like it's a large number, but it's a notable number, I guess, in regards to people having trouble with their. It seems to be like the left controller more than the right, but it just seems like people's running into problems where it's like it's not charging or it's not doing this, and the only solution is to return the whole headset to get them to fix the controller. It's madness, especially when like with Meta when my Quest 2 controller went. I hit them up and it was out of warranty, and they gave me a new controller or a refurb, maybe whatever, works just fine for free, and it was out of warranty. I was like, man, this is awesome customer service. This is great. And meanwhile, like you said, it's pulling teeth with Sony in regards to anything involving customer service with these guys. So, but back to the battery thing's definitely a big issue. Yeah, I don't know. It's PC. It's weird. It's weird other than just to say you're gonna do it, i.e., Valve just being like, "Yep, like here's your next PC headset." Like we don't give a crap what it does. I don't know who else would invest in this market. Like it just seems like it's like I know PC gaming. PC gaming. I was just looking at a bunch of articles. Apparently, PC gaming is on the rise and expected to grow marketably in the next few years. That doesn't mean VR is, but it should just by happenstance. But once again, I don't know. It's trying to wrap my head around this next thought here. I'm just having troubles. It's just a weird, like the PC market's an absolutely weird market to, or PC VR market, sorry, specifically, is a weird market to get into, um, because it's so small and so nichey. And if you're not planning on releasing on the Quest, then you're almost guaranteeing your game to fail. And that's got to be hard to get into, not only as a game developer, but as a headset publisher. I mean, but big screen. Who else? There's someone else that was coming out with a VR headset.
Completely forgot about big screen. I mean, big screen's an interesting, headset too, because I don't know. It's just it's I mean, VR enthusiasts are like it because it kind of feels like the next generation of VR because of its like small form factor and its super high res screen. Like that's really nice. But again, if I'm Valve, that's not enough. That's not enough to justify a new headset, like to just offer better resolution, and that could be one of the things that's holding back someone like Valve looking at, like, the Index still sadly enough, the Index is still very much like one of the benchmark PCVR headsets, even if it is getting long in the tooth. Like they're looking at it going, okay, again, like with Valve's, if we look at Valve's kind of thought process around releasing headsets or games, they're looking, okay, so battery life is an issue if we go wireless. Latency is an issue if we go wireless. People having proper routers and this and that and everything is an issue if we go wireless. So they might be looking at going, you know what? Even though the future of VR is probably wireless, it's not there yet for us.
For
Like
sure.
because we don't have answers to those solutions yet.
Just a giant cable that goes down to a battery pack you fit in your back pocket.
Weird. It's Apple should do that.
No one
Um,
should do that. That's
I
such
think
a
it's well, it's
all
not
the
a
reviews were like said that the complaint about that battery is being cumbersome. Like it's not an ideal solution. I understand the need to get the weight out of the headset, but I don't know if that's the right way, especially if you're talking about, long-term gaming. And the fact, I mean, now I'm just picturing vision. I didn't realize that battery is it's not it's proprietary. Like they like it's there's no USB cable. It's built into the battery. You can't like swap them out or anything like that. Like it's silly that, I know Apple does that all the time, but it's just a silly little addition. So if something happens to that cable, you have to take the whole battery in for repair, which is just
that sounds
silly.
like such an Apple thing to do.
Oh, totally, right? I mean, totally. I mean,
I
like I
mean,
said, it's
Apple was the first to bake the battery into the phone, where it's like, if the battery goes,
yeah.
time for a new phone, or you gotta bring it into us, and we'll gut the thing and figure out how to put the battery in, but we didn't make it easy for anyways, yeah, it's such an Apple bullshit thing. Um, I don't know. It's just, I'm reading here, same as Jason's writing here, but, I don't know. PCVR is in a weird space right now because there's just not I don't see the incentive for anyone to bring a VR headset right now. There just isn't.
I actually agree with that statement too. I mean, unless we see something change, like I said, the idea that you brought up earlier about PlayStation VR 2 being like this harbinger, not the right word, but like basically bringing back the AAA, and then obviously there'd be some cross platform stuff releasing. Like assuming like the developers flock to the PSVR 2, we're gonna make our next big game for the PSVR 2, and not seeing that has really just stunted VR, because once again now we're just relying back upon Meta's releases and just
Like, I wouldn't
hopefully
say
get.
it's stunted VR. I mean, like I said, I'm not doom and gloom about VR.
Oh no, I'm maybe that's the
And
wrong choice of
I'm
words,
not
but
happy. I'm not happy that the future of VR right now is in standalone because as a longtime VR gamer, I still feel like it's years behind in many ways, and that's just really frustrating.
no, I get it.
It's years behind in some ways. It's also like next gen and others.
Yeah.
Like I have no interest at ever going back to outside in tracking, like with putting up towers and going back to those resolutions and those field of views and like back in the day. Like no, fuck all that. But
Yeah, I mean, like even when I lost my Quest, or my controller died, I had to go back and I had to open up my Rift and play on my Rift, my PC gaming for a little bit, and whew, it was a surprising drop in quality in the headset. Like the PlayStation, PlayStation VR 1 is blurry. I was surprised at how blurry the Quest or the Rift was compared
yeah,
to playing on the Quest. I was like, man, like it's crazy how fast the technology has grown in such a short period of time. Which very well, I mean, that could also be a factor in this conversation too. Is just like VR is growing so fast that like these leaps and bounds as far as the lenses and screens, everything else. I
yeah.
mean,
But
it could
but
be a year from now. This conversation could be totally different.
maybe, but they are. I still feel like they are hitting a wall, and we've talked about this in an old episode. It was oh, what's his name now? Is it Michael, one of the guys who originally was founder of Oculus. What the heck was his name? I mean, he created Doom. Anyways, him. His name's escaping me right now. He was,
Carmichael.
yeah, I thought I was right. Right. He said in a podcast that I was listening to was that mobile chipsets are in they've hit a ceiling. They're as small as they can get. And he's like, so processing power is like for it to continue to double and triple and quadruple and grow the way it has been, he's like, things aren't getting small, can't get smaller anymore. Not until there's a really big jump in chip manufacturing.
John Carmack. I knew that
There we
wasn't right.
Carmack, right? There we go. I knew it wasn't right. I was close
I think we're both
enough.
running on fumes today. I'm not sure.
But anyways, he was saying that they've hit a ceiling now. Like their two ceilings are like microchip size and battery. Like they just can't right now make them a lot smaller. And so they don't know what to do with the battery. To add battery power. We saw that the Quest 2 and 3, there's not really like a big jump there. And Apple's throwing it on your hip. But processing power wise, all you have to do is look at the 40 series on PC. They're huge. The 4090 is massive. Like some people need to get new PC cases for them, and that's because they're not getting smaller. They're just getting bigger. And so that is a kind of a barrier for mobile VR because I don't know if they
For
can get
sure.
much smaller. I mean, we saw the Quest 3 get smaller, but that was because they also went with better lenses
Yeah.
and it made it a much flatter. But it was also a heavier headset. It's happening
Tiny bit, but
slightly.
yeah.
It had better weight distribution and stuff
Yeah.
because of it being so much closer to your face. So it really was negligible. But the fact is that I just don't know if standalone VR can continue to increase in power the way we want it to, until there's some technology changes. I don't know. But I mean, let's be honest. With the way that technology is going, I mean, how long is it really until this thing is literally just a, a hub for streaming?
Yeah, I mean that's kind
Isn't
of
that the
what we're
future,
still
really?
waiting for. I mean that's everything. That's the death of console. That's the death of all traditional gaming is when we can stream things. When you're just buying a box that really just streams your games, which is what let's say the next console, but that's going to happen at some point in time in the near future. I mean, it's already happening now. It hasn't been successful yet, really, just because gaming streaming isn't quite, it's just not quite at the level we want it to be at, just because, that's all, I'm not going to get into it. But you're not wrong. I mean, streaming is the key. And obviously, we knew have messed with virtual desktop. I haven't tried Steam Link yet, though I've heard it's kind of
I
mixed.
have. It's mixed. It depends. Um, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like once game streaming gets to a point, and it's getting there. It's getting there fast. I mean, obviously, you just look at Game Pass, and I've been amazed sometimes at how well it's running on my
Mhm.
even on a hotel network. The way it optimizes itself is pretty impressive. But once it gets to a point where playing wirelessly is just your like latency is not an issue necessarily, drop frames isn't an issue anymore. There's a much greater mass adoption of people running Wi-Fi 6 and above routers, at and being able to push bit rates that are where they need to be. Once the industry is at a point where that's not still considered kind of like upper tier gaming, which I think it still kind of is a little bit, and not flawless, you know
Yeah.
then this conversation might become very different, because if you take away that $2,000 PC barrier and just everybody's paying subscription passes, I mean, I could see that being where we end up going.
I mean,
Um,
it seems like that's where we're going. I mean, that's
right
just gaming in general. I
now,
mean,
now, all you need to do, now it's just a matter of, do you play it on a PC or put it on a headset? I don't know. Starts to change the question a little bit, or changes the answer. I don't know how you say that.
changes something somewhere changes for sure.
Something's
Something.
changing. Oh man, maybe on that note,
I think so.
we should.
I'm definitely
Something's
kind of.
changing somewhere.
I do want to talk about next week. I didn't talk to you yet officially about this, but I do. Next
Oh,
week is the anniversary of the PSVR 2 headset, for give or take a day. As far as this podcast goes, so I think next episode is going to be our look back at the PSVR 2. I think makes a lot of sense, but like a serious look back, and I'll go through all the positives, negatives, and not just like crap all over the headset, but actually go through
yeah, a
just
lot of it's going to be positive. It's still my
oh, for
game. It's
sure, I'm
still my
for
headset of
100%.
choice.
And then and then obviously you kind of deal with like I guess that, and then where where we think the future of the headset is going to be, and like I said, but I look back at the year that was PSVR 2. I think is a really good idea. I'll talk to you more about this after the podcast because I do have some ideas about that. But
That's what it's going
for
to
those
be.
of you watching and listening, I think that's going to be next week's topic for sure. Because yeah, I mean, give some PSVR some love. I've been throwing a lot of shade at that thing of late, so
You know what? You know what it is though. it's, I will say, at least for me, my feeling about the PSVR 2 and the way and the reason maybe I might think that I negative. There's one guy on Twitter there that just loves to me, and he's been in our chat too. I think he's PSVR fanatic, and he just thinks I'm so fucking negative about PSVR 2. You know what? It's more like a parent just adores
Disappointing.
you love your child, and you want the best for this child, and you know its potential, this child, and yet it just keeps dropping out of school and doing drugs. And it's just like, you know what? You could be so much more.
You should have saved this analogy for next episode.
No, but I'm saying that in anticipation of the next episode, so that anyone who's listening understands that it's not that I absolutely love my PSVR 2. It's just that it's frustrating to not see it live up to its potential right now.
Yeah. I totally back that up.
And like, you know, is this first year with the PSVR 2? Do we have a better install base of games year one with the PSVR? I guess that's the next episode conversation.
Yeah, but we do. That's an easy question to answer. I remember that first year of
I don't
PSVR.
I don't think it is. I don't know if
That
it
was
is
rough
easy.
times, man.
I don't know if it's easy, man. I don't know.
And there's a few bangers in there. We got like this is next episode. Next episode.
But I'm saying I was trying to tee up that second episode, and anyway.
Man, we just lost you. Yeah, this is about that. It's Discord's just cutting in your audio again. I don't know. It's
that
just
90-minute mark. It's 90 minutes. Fuck you. That's what
it was happening for a while, but now it's just straight up just like I just lost you for seconds. I totally missed whatever your funny little joke was, and it's just like, man, like I don't know. Discord just hates this podcast.
The thing is, it wasn't that funny, and Discord's like, we're done with
it. It's just muting you. Oh, these are bad jokes.
These are bad.
All
right.
So yeah, I think that's about it. Once again, everyone who tuned in, we're still kind of getting back into the groove and everything else, but thank you all for watching and listening. I will hopefully have this episode up at a regular rate for the audio guys. I kind of screwed that last one up. My own fault. I am forgetful and mostly just forgetful. So, but it'll be up tomorrow morning for sure.
And again, special thanks to our patrons. You guys are awesome. And anyone who chats, very much appreciated. Helps make this easier to do.
Man, this is killing your audio right now.
Okay, I'm out. Say goodbye, Ryan.
Goodbye, Ryan.
Later, guys.